Anime fans have never been more interested in the research and analysis of the medium than they are now. I've never in my, 15 years as an anime fan, as someone who's a part of anime communities online and in person, I've never seen so many people taking such an interest in who makes this stuff, like the personalities of the people behind it and tracing their lineages and their work and interviewing them and having more of a dialogue with the creators. I've never seen so many people so interested in dissecting what shows mean and what it means for a show to be good in different ways that shows can be good. I've never seen such a widespread interest in it. And I can't say that I've ever really had my fingers on the pulse of the anime community, but at the same time, I also don't know where to find that pulse. And to this day, I still struggle with that, and I feel like that's something that is maybe coming by itself and that needs to be coming. I'll explain what I mean. There's a lot of different outlets for talking about discussing anime. There's lots of people sharing their knowledge, their analysis, their thoughts on anime as a medium, but it's so uncollected. It's so all over the place, and there seems to be so little communication between the different people who are talking about it. Now, back when I was an anime text blogger, we had what we called the anime blogosphere, where there was a bunch of anime blogs, and all of them were pretty aware of one another, all of the major ones anyway. There were definitely certain circles within it. There were different types of blogs, some that were bigger, some that were smaller, but on the whole, text blogging was never big. There was never any text blog that was huge. There was nobody who was doing it as a career, unless it was Danichu or Sankaku Complex, which are news sites that are kind of like blogs that did some kind of clickbait, had some way of getting attention. But by and large, blogs were just things people were doing as passion projects, and most of the anime community at large didn't care about it, because most anime fans of the time were people who were either watching what was on Adult Swim or what was released on DVD in the US. There were more people who didn't watch something until it had a dub. There wasn't a whole lot of people downloading all the fan subs, and shows weren't getting translated at the rate they are now. Back then, I could be writing a blog post about Hidamari's sketch, which was taking, months for an episode to get subtitled, and a couple hundred people were watching it in total, and not all those people were reading blogs. It was just so much more specific back then. But now, every show is on Crunchyroll, and everyone's watching it, and everyone wants to hear about it, and every show gets talked about. You have those charts, and we know all the fucking shows that are coming out every season. Even if some of them aren't getting a lot of attention, they're getting some attention. As much as I earlier this year decried the idea, I was complaining how nobody was watching Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju and stuff, but even that show still managed to get analyzed by a bunch of anime blogs, several YouTubers. People did talk about it. Eventually some people found it. I mean, even if it only has 20,000 lists that it appears on Mal or something, a show of that status, being about that subject matter in 2007 would have had less than 1,000 people, who would have been qualified to list it on my anime list. Not that site was nearly as big at the time, but you get what I mean. So now we're at this period where so many people are interested. So many people are able to get so much more deeply invested. There's so many people watching even the most obscure stuff, caring about even the most obscure outlooks. And yet, I feel like everyone's gaining new knowledge, but they're gaining it from all these different places, and no one's getting the same well-rounded, structure of knowing about anime history or about anime, where it's going and what it's doing. And there's so many different people talking about it. You go watch the Canepa Effect, and every video he does is trying to teach you something about the industry, some creator who's exciting right now, some technique, something that people just don't seem to get that he needs to clarify, and it's great, but I don't see him talking to anybody. The Canepa Effect doesn't talk to me, even though, I follow him. I've shouted him out a bunch of times. I don't see him talking to Kevin, who is Yu Cow on Twitter, who writes for Anime News Network and writes all these Sakuga posts, so, like, analyzes animation, runs the Sakuga blog from Sakuga Boru, which is this site that's just a chronicle of every fucking animator in the whole world, and they're doing great work. And, Canepa finally, in his latest video, like, outright, says, hey, go to Sakuga Boru, this is a place. But why aren't we all saying it all the time? Why is there not, like, this constant cross-reference where people can actually follow, like, a conversation being had across sort of space and time? Because the thing is that if you follow the Sakuga blog, then, like, there's kind of this assumption that you're keeping up, that you know what Sakuga is, that you're following the current conversation, because that conversation is moving rapidly, where we're now in a world where people writing about animation expect you to know who Yutaka Nakamura is, and if you don't, if you're behind that conversation, then you're cut off from where it's going. And we need to live in a world where just everyone knows who Yutaka Nakamura is, so we can take that next step forward, so that if I name drop him in the middle of something about Sakuga, everyone knows what I'm talking about. We're all caught up, Wave Motion Canon just translated an interview with him, and they wrote that from the assumption, like, he's this animation superstar. The closest thing that animators have to a household name is a phrase that was used in that, and yet, somewhere on our anime is someone who has no idea who that is, even though our anime is posed to be the best receptacle for all this stuff, because everything gets posted there, and anything can get popular there. It's shocking, the articles that I'll see there, where it'll be like an interview with an obscure animator that makes it to the top page just because, whoever wrote the title, sold it well enough, but yet somehow our anime doesn't seem to know who those writers are. There doesn't seem to be this movement towards actually following the blog, For Me in Full Bloom, which is the blog of, AJ the Fourth. I don't remember what the actual site is called, but the URL is For Me in Full Bloom. Great little blog that does sometimes episodic posts about, like, current shows and stuff, very analytical, and sometimes I'll see her posts make it to the front page of Reddit, and yet it doesn't seem to translate to, like, more general traffic to her blog. It's just like these individual things, and it's because the actual culture and community on Reddit is all about, like, the comments and the discussion, and it's not about, like, going and making those people a part of their community. It's just, like, them sitting with their little group talking about the other people's content, to such an extent that you can have a Reddit board where I have videos that every single video I make gets to the top of the hot page, and yet I've been banned there for 2 years because they're not interested in making me a part of the conversation. They just want my videos so they can talk about them, And that's where I feel like all this is right now, where it's like all these people having different conversations that should all be together. People should be going from my video to a Wave Motion Canon blog post, to a Canepa Effect video, to a Kevin tweet or something, and following this all at once, because they're all playing off of each other, yet not mentioning it. A Bobdu post or something, like, everyone who's a part of that is following the conversation and keeping up, but they're not inviting their audience to do the same. And I'm not doing much better than everybody else. I mean, I've been lately trying to bring up, Canepa and Sakugaboru more and be like, hey, go watch these people who are, advancing the knowledge of the medium. But we really need there to be more of this home base kind of thing, And I know that Kevin, when he writes for Anime News Network, probably can't drop links to Sakugaboru because Sakugaboru probably isn't, strictly speaking, the most legal of websites, no matter how many animators love it. And Anime News Network is a fucking advertisement-driven juggernaut of a site, but wouldn't it be nice if we had something that was like our anime, where it's this great compendium of all anime culture and knowledge, but where the people writing the blog posts are actually posting on the Reddit, which, in fairness, Canepa does post there. Again, I'm banned. I just want us to sort of be coming together over this knowledge, because there's so much of it. There's so much of it going around. And, I see how I feel like it used to be that way. I feel like back in the day when anime was a smaller fan base and it was more interconnected and it was a bunch of anime clubs trading tapes, they really like knew who each other were. And I have this fascination that I get when I open up like Otaku USA and there's articles by Daryl Surat, who runs panels at every anime convention I go to. Every time I go to Otakon, there's some Daryl Surat panel, and here he is writing for this. And then he also has Anime World Order, this podcast that's been going forever that's like in-depth anime knowledge. And then you see how the guy who makes this magazine, Patrick Macias, came from this older magazine. And it's like it used to be that there was this like cabal of anime gurus, who were just publishing all the knowledge that was out there. And if you were an anime fan, where else were you going to get knowledge but some magazine? But the knowledge was so limited back then because it was such a chaotic world where nobody was watching what's airing on TV in Japan. We didn't even know that's where anime came from back then, But like now, there's such an opportunity for all the gurus to come together and, have a magazine-like compendium of knowledge and have everybody come to the party and we all get it and we're all on the same page and we all care about what struggles the animators are going through right now, making no money, how the in-betweeners are all suffering somewhere. And maybe we'll even be able to do something about it once we've, got all our heads in the same game together. Anyways, I hope that's interesting.